Traditional sweet recipes from Malta, available online at www.traditionalmaltesweets.com. Traditional sweet recipes, creating a small slice of Malta that feels like home.
Merħba fil-programm Maltese DownUnder. Għal-ġimgħa oħra jiena Marlin Xikluna insellmilkom u nirringrazzjakom li qed tiżommu l-appuntament tagħkom magħna għal dan il-programm bi produzzjoni mill-Belt ta' Melbourne. Il-programm tal-lum ser ilaqgħakom mal-futboler magħruf Manny Muscat. Ser morru fi New South Wales u nitkellmu mal-artist Mark Avellino u nerġgħu lura fil-Victoria fil-kċina ta' Michael Apap. Fl-ewwel taqsima tagħna llum il-kollega tiegħi Mark Avellino ser jitkellem ma' Manny Muscat, futboler magħruf b'mod partikolari għas-snin li jagħmel ma' Wellington Phoenix u issa ma' Melbourne City.
One of the things that a lot of people may not know is that your origins are from the VPL, or Victorian Premier League, and you started out at Sunshine George Cross, which was a few years ago now, I imagine.
Yeah, it was quite a few years ago. I think it was down in 2006, I think. I spent about 3 years down at George Cross. I joined them when they were in Division 2, and we were fortunate enough to get promoted to win the league. Then, so within the 3 years I was there, we got promoted, both 2 years in a row, and then the third year we managed to stay up, which was good.
Yeah, it's quite an achievement to be able to stay at that level, isn't it?
Of course, of course. And at that time I was only like 19, 20, so years where you're actually developing, you know.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you were starting out in your career, how did you decide what club to sort of start with? You know, like what was your origins to get with George Cross?
Oh, well, I think my father was a big influence. You know, I remember watching George Cross when I was young. You know, there was a player called Anthony Casa. Growing up, I've always idolised him, and just growing up, I just remembered that George Cross was a good place to start. And
yeah, and obviously it's the origins of the club are Maltese, so I suppose that's the logical link.
That's the major point as well. You know, my parents are both Maltese, and it was only fitting to play for a Maltese club.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, you were with George Cross for a number of years, and then you moved over to Green Gully.
Yeah.
So you've gone from one side of the Maltese to the other side. Was the transition to a different club, like what was the experience like to go over?
Well, you know, some will say it's what are you doing and all that, but at that time it was more about just developing as a player. With moving from one Maltese club to another, it was probably at that time not the great thing to do, but I was more thinking about establishing my career and moving forward. And there was a time at George Cross where they were in a situation where they weren't going to stay in that league. So then for me to develop and continue was more about going to and staying in that VPL Premier League and not dropping to Division 1.
Yeah. So you know, you're at George Cross, and then you're starting to get a little bit of A-League interest. And you know, so how did you end up going from George Cross into the A-League? Like, what was that transition?
So so during my spell at George Cross, I had one trial down at Brisbane, Queensland Raw they were called at that time. It was the first year of the A-League, and it was unsuccessful. And then when I moved over to Green Gully, I had another trial that wasn't great, or with Sydney FC. And so then third time lucky, the opportunity came, and I was surprised that Green Gully did let me go, because at that time we were playing for finals football. But they always knew what my end game was to playing at the highest level as possible. So Wellington Phoenix came, and I had a trial with them down at Wollongong. It was, at that time, it was like the FFA Cup that we have now.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, fortunate for me, it was probably one of the best trial games that I've ever had, and what some players will say that it's probably the best trial game that they've seen.
Wow.
So for me, it was just third time lucky.
Yeah, so it's about taking opportunity, isn't it, when it arises, I suppose.
Definitely, I think that's what it's all about. You know, with football, you get limited opportunities. Sometimes you need a lucky break as well. Prior to going to George Cross, I spent 7 months trialling for European clubs in England there, and then it didn't work out. So then I spent about 7 months in Malta playing for Nadal youngsters and stuff like that. So then I was only 18 then. So then coming back, and you get knocked down when you're growing up, but you got to pick yourself up. And fortunate for me, it's I'm still playing professional football. So when I was in Wellington, so at that time, the national team did call me up while I was in Wellington. So that was surprising. And I've always said, always play your best game, play your good football, because you don't know who's watching. And at that time, and the national team came knocking on the door, and it was fantastic.
You played in some pretty significant games during that period with the national team. I think it was a World Cup qualifier and a Euro Cup as well.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you to sort of wear the Maltese jersey and to be there? What was that experience like for you?
It was so surreal. Like, being a professional footballer, you just want to be always testing yourself, and playing international football is probably the most pinnacle part of your career if you ever had the opportunity to play it. And to play for Malta, which at that time our qualifying teams were Sweden, Czech Republic, Portugal, I think it was.
Okay, so they went.
So they're quite big name teams, and so testing yourself with other big name players, and to see what level you're at, is always rewarding.
We bring it forward to now, and you've transferred over to Melbourne City. Coming to Melbourne City, there must have been good reasons to sort of make that change for you.
Look, I've always had opportunities to come home, and it wasn't just timing wasn't right for me at that time. So now I've just had my third kid, so it was just not just for myself, for my wife as well. She's had it tough, living away from home for the last 8 years. So it was just perfect timing, with Melbourne City knocking on my door and say, look, we want you to be involved. The setup that they've got there is top draw. It's probably one of the best in the league, and to be involved as such, the City group is just fantastic. Football is such a funny game, and it can send you to a lot of places around the world. And but for me personally, starting from Melbourne, then going to Wellington, and then ending or playing my last final years here at the City group is probably such a good journey, or a fantastic journey to end my career.
If somebody was watching this and they're kind of like starting out, what would you say to a young player that was looking to sort of become professional? What would you say to them?
Growing up, the most important thing is to never stop believing. There was a time in my career when I was 16 years old. I was hospitalised for such a long period, and pretty much on the hospital bed thinking am I going to get through this? And I never stopped believing, and the most important thing is to drive yourself and to support yourself with surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you, but also tell you the truth.